Now we've got a good audience. Mike, I'd like to hand over to you. Mike is is the co-founder of urban.com.au, and he's going to talk about driving transparency to improve supply of new homes to the market in Australia. So,
sounds good.
Thanks a lot.
I need my clicker.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good way to start.
I know, helps with the clicker. How's it going, everyone? Excited to kind of be speaking at this. I've been a long time watcher and listener of these events, and some of the things that we've learned from listening first online and then attending the event a couple of years ago in Miami have really helped to shape our strategy as a business. So it's exciting to come and share kind of what we've been up to and some of the insights that we've taken from these conferences, gone back to Australia and applied to our business. But so my name's, as Simon said, Mike Bird. I'm the CEO of urban.com.au. And we're on a mission to improve the quality of new homes in Australia and improve the daily lives of millions of people. We all have the opportunity operating portals that touch the lives of millions of people, and we all know the important role that your home has in your life. And particularly in Australia and other countries around the world, it also has a huge impact in terms of your financial well-being. And we think that the quality of the supply and the new developments that are being built in every country have opportunity for improvement, and Australia is definitely one of those places. So we're very focused on making sure that we can kind of really serve the communities we work in and make sure people have a great place to live. So my talk today is kind of three parts. Maybe more relevant for some people in different parts, but the first thing I'm going to talk a bit about is our bootstrap journey. So I know there was a startup day on Tuesday, and we heard from some awesome startups today, but I think we deliberately went down the bootstrap journey 11 years ago when we got started, and when the capital markets are in the state that they're in right now, where it is a little bit harder to raise capital, or maybe you're like us and you just want to kind of control your own destiny, bootstrapping is a good option. I'm just going to share a quick overview of kind of how we went through the process and the sequence of the strategy and why that worked for us. Then I'm going to talk a bit about the massive problem in the Australian housing market. And talking to Simon and others, I know that these types of problems aren't just unique to Australia, and there are quality problems and supply problems all over the world. So hopefully some of these things in terms of how we're working with the industry, you can take back to your own markets to improve the quality of that housing and serve the people that we ultimately all work for. So our bootstrap journey. So George, my business partner, who's just over in the crowd there, we started a company called Social Garden 11 years ago, shortly after moving from New Zealand to Australia. We were kind of one of Facebook's first partners in the Australian market. We worked with them to combine basically just like a very rudimentary landing page strategy, driving traffic from Facebook and from Google to a landing page, packaging up that lead, and then selling it to the developer at a fixed price per lead. So we did it on a subscription basis, so the developer would pay us like a fee per month, a subscription fee, and then we would guarantee them to deliver a certain volume of leads, and if we were able to do that more cost effectively, then that was basically our profit. So it provided certainty for developers relative to the incumbent portals, and that's kind of how we got off to a really fast start. We were able to get profitable quickly and take kind of some control of our own destiny. And so then we built a platform called Lead Tech, which enabled us to, and our customers to look at the cost per sale reporting, where their leads were coming from, how much it cost to generate a sale, and automate a lot of the workflows. So that was kind of our first business, but we had this gigantic problem, which is that we were very reliant on Facebook and Google, and one of our early advisors told us that only the paranoid survive. And we kind of really believe that. And so we really focused on how do we kind of make sure that not only do we not have this single point of failure, and if Facebook, for some reason, something changes, or Google, that we would be okay. And so we decided that we needed to own our own asset, both in terms of this kind of diversification of channel mix, but also because we wanted to ensure, when you're selling leads for the portals out there, they'll know the first question you get from the agents is about the quality of the leads. So we wanted to enable consumers to go further through the process. So the industry, it was basically an industry website that created a profile on each new development in Melbourne. It had kind of good bones. It was almost like a bit of a hobby for the founders, but they were well-respected people in the industry because they were, pro urbanisation and quality development, and that's kind of where we started. So we bought the business off the guys. We converted it into an online marketplace, into a national online marketplace. Unfortunately now, we've got the largest audience in terms of the dedicated off-the-plan place. I was almost going to say, Ed, it depends how you define the category leader, but we're a long way behind the other guys. But in this one, just to give you the bingo stamp, we kind of just focus on the apartment townhouse market. But yes, we converted it into an online marketplace. We grew the traffic quite quickly from our experience building, like running digital marketing stuff for our clients as well, and Social Garden, as well as this kind of lead tech stuff. Grew the traffic a lot, created a freemium model, you'll be pleased to hear, Simon, and then thankfully, we had a few more customers than average switch across to a premium subscription where we deliver them leads. So we had our Social Garden lead tech customers, which was done on the customer's brand. We had the Urban lead subscription product, and then off the back of listening to guys like Georg and Malcolm talking, maybe like 3 years ago about the transaction, we went through 3 different iterations to get to a place now where, it's now a meaningful part of our revenue, where we get paid based on when the customer buys something. And then we actually just announced last week, we acquired another business, which is effectively a home builder comparison website. Similar stage where we bought Urban Melbourne, and so kind of using that same playbook to try to solve problems in the home builder market, and again, using that kind of what's worked for us in the past. So why is that useful for startups that are either deciding to go the bootstrap route or are unable to raise capital? I think just focusing on one side of the marketplace first. It's this whole chicken or the egg problem, but thankfully for a lot of marketplace-based strategies, you can really just buy the traffic at the start. If you really understand what the B2B problems are and really narrow down on that, that's a simple way to kind of get started, and that's really where we kind of focused in the early years, is kind of solving that problem around predictable, high-quality leads that result in a low cost per sale. We also kind of focused on making sure the industry would get behind us. And we did that by sending out hundreds of thousands of free leads in the apartment market, which is notoriously expensive in Australia. And so that led to kind of a ton of industry engagement and resulted in us having heaps of data and probably the best view of the apartment market in real time across the market in terms of what projects are on market, what status are they at, who's the agent, are they under construction or not, what's the configuration of the development, who's behind it, who's the architect, etc. So all of this stuff, as the generative AI piece has risen, the quality of the data that we now have, combined with we've built a software application that's connecting our data to the OpenAI API, and that's resulted in us having a massive content footprint where all the content that's being generated is completely unique to us because it's based on our own unique data. So where are we now? So we employ about 60 people in our prop tech business. We're profitable, we're independent, and we're kind of founder, owned and operated. So, and we've been able to, not necessarily have to, with the venture fund, sometimes it's about grow. We've been able to kind of take control and just grow when it makes sense for us to grow, and then slow down sometimes when it makes sense to slow down. So, what's the big problem in the housing market? So, you can see here we had a ton of population growth and not a lot of supply responding in the marketplace. And for most people, I think, and myself included, it's got to be about the money and the interest rates, and that's really the thing that's holding it back. And I certainly think that that's true, but we wanted to know that for sure because, at the end of the day, we can't control what the Reserve Bank of Australia is going to do or the RBA or whatever it is, or whoever may be setting the rates around the world. So we wanted to know what are the things that we can control. So we spoke to our customers, our users, and asked them, is it about getting finance, which is my assumption that is what they were going to say? Is it about selling their own home? Is it about value for money? Is it about the trust of the developer builder? Is it the uncertainty on move-in timelines? Actually just finding something they want, or is it construction quality? And it was a landslide in terms of, I know the text is quite small, but the two skyscrapers on the left-hand side, whether they can't trust the developer, they don't trust the builder, and they're worried about construction quality. And while that seems like a terrible thing, which it is, it's also kind of the things on that list are the most solvable problems as well. Because from our perspective, we think 10 to 15% of developments in Australia are not delivered to an appropriate standard. I think about half of that are people that are maliciously and never intending on delivering a great product. The other half are people that kind of just shouldn't be developing big, large-scale developments. It's more an incompetence rather than, them being bad actors kind of thing. But I just wanted to play a couple of little audio clips just to give you a sense. We speak to customers a lot, and that informs what the products we build. So would you play that?
Well, we've stopped looking for new properties, actually.
Okay.
Because we think the market's just too unreliable at the moment with the number of builders that are going bust, and the number of developers who've asked for additional funding to complete projects on time.
Right.
And that coupled with sort of concern that you don't really know what you're getting into. The problems come up later, as opposed to an older build where you know what the problems are, if there are any.
Yeah, doing the research, the background, because we had a look at a couple of places, off the plan. They're going, yeah, it's great, and they had great views. Then I went and did my research, and there was already another two high-rise in the pipeline to go up,
Right.
which were going to block out the view of the one we were looking at. So I like...
So this is a real problem. When consumers don't have the confidence to buy something before it's built, it changes the whole requirement from the capital stack as far as the amount of funding required to build these projects. And so in order for Australia to really solve the supply-based issues, we need to get consumer confidence back. And to be honest, they've got a pretty good reason. When we see the headlines in the Australian media, I don't know if this is the case around the world, but it's very negative. Traditional media in particular, anything, I think Seb was saying before, it's like Australia is obsessed with property. And so every time that an article goes live where it says developer X goes bust, builder goes bust, or there's some kind of problem with defects or whatever it might be, across our entire platform, conversion rate from visitor to inquiry goes down. And so while it's only a small percentage of people that are kind of doing this stuff, it's actually tarring our entire sector with this bad reputation that for a small group of people it is deserved, and those people need to leave the market, in our view. And we need to kind of help the best developers in the marketplace. So our whole thing is, how do we help consumers buy from the best developers and avoid the worst developers? And sometimes I feel like, Will Smith here trying to dodge the bad developers that are kind of not a massive fan of us, as you could probably imagine. But thankfully, most of the developers are good actors trying to do the right thing, and the byproduct of that is often the customers we have are the ones that are believing in our mission, agree that, the quality really matters. So how we think about kind of approaching the solution, first of all, we're very focused on creating unique data sets. So a lot of data out in the public domain is useful, but in terms of when people are actually interacting with our product, they leave a whole bunch of clues and breadcrumbs around what are they looking for, building ranking systems and all these types of things. So how do we build unique data that then we can integrate into our experience, and then we build our kind of product around solving these specific things. And again, I think the incumbent market players in terms of like Domain and REA do an incredible job in the established market. My personal view is that those two companies are going to remain the number 1 and 2 companies for the long term. But I also don't think that these types of problems can be bolted on as an additional part within these existing platforms that are really orientated around the established market, is my personal view. So we're kind of trying to build our entire product experience around collecting the data that matters, that enables consumers to make a good decision, and then designing product in and around like surfacing that data to help consumers tell the difference between the 90% of people that are trying to do the right thing, consistently delivering good projects, and the 10% of people that are either shouldn't be doing the projects or are just bad actors in general. The third thing we're really focused on, which is more recent for us, is that we're sharing back and looking at how those users are interacting with our platform. What amenities are they searching for? Should the developer be building a project here or here? How many 2 bedrooms versus 1 bedroom? Should it have a pool or a gym? All of these kind of data insights we're now beginning to provide back to the developers, so the supply of housing is being built in the right areas that's fit for purpose for the people that are going to live there. Because there's so many of the major projects in Melbourne and across Australia end up with amenity where it's very expensive to maintain, and it has very low utilisation rates. So the more that we can provide that insight back to the development market, the better it will be. So yeah, and as I mentioned before, we've got this massive, unique data set now. In combination with generative AI, we're able to produce huge volumes of really high quality content that no one else can publish because we're the only ones with this type of data. And I think that's the key to making the generative AI stuff work. We've also gone through and upgraded our developer. We've now got a profile for every property developer in Australia, every builder in Australia, like large scale ones, showcasing what they've delivered before, credentials they've got to make it easy for the consumer to say, has this person actually delivered a tower before? Are they gone from doing 3 townhouse projects to now they're doing a $150 million skyscraper? And those types of things, when they don't have the right support around them, that's where the problems come from. We're also encouraging the best developers to hop on video. It's probably no surprise to you that the more dodgy players are also not that keen to get in front of the camera. So we're encouraging the best developers to jump on, talk to us about why they're in development, why this project makes sense, and align their personal brand with the project. We're also collecting user-generated data and feedback and showcasing that back to the consumer. We have to do that carefully. As most markets in the review space, most of the time people want to provide a review. It's not a positive one. So we're slowly kind of asking what do they think the key strengths were, but slowly over time we'll be more and more transparent and opening more and more data to help consumers do that. So, in summary, for developers, we want to make brand more of a competitive advantage and what they've done previously more important. We want to bring developers' personal brands to the fore to make sure that they're kind of incentivized to be accountable for delivering a good outcome, because they don't be at their local supermarket, everyone knows who they are and they've just done wrong by 150 people who've spent their life savings on a terrible development. We want to bring that accountability. We want to show the historical track record of what they've done before, and we want to profile the teams behind the development. For the consumer, we want to reduce the information asymmetry. Most people that work in our market, we know who the good players are, we know who the people that are the not so good players are. We want to make that more obvious for consumers. We want to make it easier for buyers to understand risk. We want to continue to kind of grow that media and news cycle. We want to provide third-party verification. Is construction actually underway, or are they just clearing the site? So providing verification on that stuff. So my ask for you guys, we all have a massive role to play, and we have a tremendous degree of influence based on the reach we have and the influence we have over the housing markets we operate in. And I think we all have a responsibility and opportunity to improve the quality of the new houses that are being built in our markets. And I encourage you guys to really think about how you can do that and do some social good while making some money. That's my presentation.
Thank you.
Hey.
Okay. How do you call out bad developers, and aren't some of them your customers?
Well, good question. So we basically start with, we don't provide the coverage for the bad developers, and at times the silence is deafening. We get a lot of people saying, why are you not writing stories about us? Why is everyone else in the media? And so we're kind of careful with how we respond with that stuff, but we're starting by covering the good ones and not covering the bad ones as a starting point.
Okay, and now it's the starting point. Now roll the clock forward. What are you going to do?
I think depends on how we see the data, how the market responds, but TBC.
Can you elaborate?
Well, I think, the concept of like empty state within product, or the product concept of an empty state, where you've got, for example, in New South Wales, there's this thing called the iCert rating system. So the best developers in New South Wales often have gone through this rigorous process on the financial due diligence of the directors, of the how many defects have they had, insurance problems, things like that. And so the best developers have that. So one example of something we may do in the future is right along the top of the project listing, the iCert rating logo, and then there's a dirty big hole, a gap there, where these bad, or not as good developers don't have these ratings. So making sure we're leaving empty states so consumers can see when there is and when there isn't.
Got it.
The other thing is making, as we're kind of like dialing up the, not aggressiveness of the strategy, but dialing up the heat on the strategy, increasingly rolling out new features within our search experience that helps consumers search for make it more obvious that what they should be searching for.
So you're going to walk that fine line.
It's a fine line.
Because what you don't want is a false positive.
Correct.
Calling someone out for being dodgy and they're actually not.
Yeah, because we've kind of went through a few different iterations of this where we were like, well, should we be the ones that say yes or no? But increasingly, we're kind of aggregating other parties' kind of reviews and ratings, like the iCert as an example, and being more of an aggregation play and providing distribution for people that are providing these kind of views.
Have you thought of putting your own stamp of approval on the top performing? Forget there's top, middle, bottom, but just the top, and so that way you avoid the broader question, but you put the gold elephant stamp on the ones that you perceive as being the best in the market.
Definitely. I mean, we're starting that with the video. So the best developers in my personal perspective, I don't want to be sitting, because I do the interviews myself as well, so sitting with the person, the developer next to me and talking about their project, I don't want to feel like I'm personally endorsing someone that I think is going to rip off our users. So to answer your question, yes, and I think that process has started with the video.
Okay, and then, I'll come back to some questions on that. You said you changed business model to taking a commission. Is that now your main model or just a segment of your business? And would you have changed if you hadn't been to PPW? Thanks, Ed.
It is not our main model. We're running them in hybrid. I would say it's a meaningful part of our revenue now. Would we have done it had we not seen the Maybe not. Maybe not.
Okay.
Just put it this way. It put us a lot more on our radar. And then we started trying to figure out how to get it going.
Okay. I can see a slight misquote there. Definitely not. Okay. How might a portal in a different market diversify into the new build development market for the first time? There must be a huge opportunity in most major markets for a much stronger relationship between portals, home builders, and buyers.
I think most portals have a developer section. I think the problems that relate to the customer experience, the overall customer experience as far as making sure you're buying from a good developer, the product experience, in my opinion, needs to be completely orientated around that. And I think most established portals can do a pretty good job of developer, but I think to really nail it and solve these meaningful problems, I think it needs to be a standalone platform.
Yeah, but I think your first words there was a developer section.
Yes.
Right. But it's a different segment of the market, at least from the advertiser perspective. Right? You've got, and and how you present the developer is very different from how you would present an established home.
That's great.
So should it always be a section, or should it actually be a separate site?
My view, it should be a separate site, but maybe I'm biased. But yeah, I think the filters, the search experience is actually quite different. My view is, and you fast forward in terms of the question earlier, what are we doing to help consumers find that? The filtering system in terms of how many projects should the developer have done before? Do you prefer to buy from someone that has these types of ratings, these types of insurances? Those kind of search experiences aren't related to the established market. So no. The question is, yeah, I'm not sure. I think people can do it. But.
A bit of a history statement, reminiscence here. Commercial properties used to be a filter on REA.
Really?
Yes, yes they were. Okay? Back in 2000, 2001, and that's when we woke up and said, wait a second, isn't this just totally different? And the only reason they were a filtered product is because the agents also had commercial properties. We're talking about the news agents or milk bar or whatever it is around the corner that they were representing, not the big developments. So therefore, it was just thrown in there as part of the feed. And we said, well, wait a second, this should be separate. So we then just spun out, created Real Business back in 2001, 2, James? I don't remember what it is, somewhere around that.
What's your take on it? Do you think it should be a standalone experience, or do you think the portal should make it a section?
I think the answer is yes and yes. Okay, and let me explain why. I think there should be a separate site for those who just want to experience a new development. I want to buy a new development. I'm buying as an investment property. I'm not going to buy an established home. I just want to buy a new development. So I need to have a place to go. Now, there will be people who are buying to live, and they don't mind if it's new development or established, but there are other criteria that are more important. Location, next to a school, whatever. Okay? Now, two ways. You either mirror or you actually redirect to the environment, but you're coming in from a different use case perspective. So I think the answer is you can have it as a separate site. End of the story about real business. It's now a $70 or $80 million, probably more, revenue business doing, I think if you actually look at it standalone, it's about an 80% EBITDA margin. It's because you don't need too many people, you've got a locked-in audience and so on. And that was spun out purely because of a need in the market. And I think there is absolutely legitimate need in what you're doing. What are the key differences between established market and new development markets that warrant a different platform?
I think it's the things I mentioned before in terms of the search criteria. There's just a whole bunch more due diligence that consumers should be doing when they're buying off the plan. When you walk into an established listing, you can there's a lot less risk attached to that. So I think that whole risk component is basically the core difference in the experience.
Okay, last question. How do you overcome challenges where the developer isn't willing or prepared to provide sufficient project information to inspire confidence, pricing, financial structuring, etc.? Are they one of your dodgy clients if they don't want to provide the information?
It's not always the case, but it's definitely correlated. They basically don't rank as well in our search engine. We kind of have ways to disincentivize that behavior, but we call them internally healthy listings, and we're kind of looking at releasing something called a thanks, Georg. Oh my God, I completely lost my train of thought now.
Don't worry, we don't want his hair.
I'll take his business though, it sounds pretty good.
Okay, so bottom line is, the way I take away from this is you're really acting in, if you think about and this goes back to a chart that Ed had, when you talk to the portals, what's most important, it's 50-50 split between the advertiser and the consumer, but really it's the consumer. No, that's what they say. They favour the advertiser, but really what they do is favouring the consumer. And what you're overtly saying is, no, we're the consumer's friend. We're taking them on the guided journey. We're going to make sure that when you see a development, you've got confidence that it's not a dodgy developer. Okay, not 100%, but you're getting much higher levels of confidence in that journey that this development is has got a good chance to be a good development, at least be built to the right specs, not a building in front, and so on.
Exactly.
And I think that's really what's around that, is that you're truly acting in the best interests of the buyer, but by doing so, the quality of the leads you're generating convert much higher, and therefore everyone is happy in that process.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, it's always a give and take with these things, but I feel like where we had that initial focus on the B2B side and the industry side, making it very compelling from a pay per lead or pay per sale type model, we make it very compelling for the developer, which gives us flexibility to look after the consumer.
Okay. Fantastic, Mike. Thank you very much for sharing those thoughts.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your questions.